Welcome back. Let's get more now on the top story, the biggest shake-up of disability benefits in years. Well, in a moment, we'll speak to Stephen Timms, the Minister from the Work and Pensions Department. But first, let's have a flavour of what some of his colleagues had to say about Liz Kendall's announcements yesterday.
My friends, my family are very angry about this, and they do not think this is the kind of action that a Labour government takes.
There are alternative, more compassionate ways to balance the books rather than on the back of sick and disabled people.
There are decisions made in this House that stay with you for the rest of your life. This is one of them. Trying to find up to £5 billion worth of cuts by manipulating, by changing the PIP rules, the criteria, will result in immense suffering.
Well, Minister, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. Can you understand their sentiment there?
Well, what we sent out yesterday is a plan to fix the broken benefit system, proper employment support. We know at the moment there are 200,000 people out of work on health and disability grounds who'd love to be in a job if they could just get the support to get them there. We're going to provide that support. We're going to tackle the big discouragement to work created by changes in the benefit system over the last 15 years, which force a lot of people to pin their hopes on being declared incapable ever of working. There's a financial bonus for doing that, when what we should be doing and what we will be doing is putting them in, supporting them on a pathway back into work. And we're going to make the cost of the disability benefit system sustainable costs. The cost of personal independence payment has almost doubled just in 5 years. If that was to carry on, that would scupper the system for the future when we need the system to be there providing help to hundreds of thousands of people who depend on it.
John McDonnell framed this as, trying to save £5 billion in light of the fiscal situation. Is it because of the fiscal situation, or are you suggesting you would have made these changes anyway? They need to be made.
I think these changes need to be made anyway. That 12 billion we were spending on personal independence payment the year before the pandemic, 5 years ago. This year we're going to be spending 22, and it will be heading up to well over 30 in the next 5 years if something wasn't done. So I think whatever the fiscal situation, we would have needed to make these changes.
With that in mind, why wasn't it in the manifesto? Why was the rhetoric almost exclusively in opposition, the opposite towards this? If you knew you had to make the changes anyway, why weren't you upfront about it with your voters? Well,
we did say in the manifesto that we wanted to bring forward a plan to fix the broken system. We said that the work capability assessment, which is part of this, needed to be reformed or replaced. We've announced yesterday that we are going to remove it. And the system as a whole is going to be reformed and made financially sustainable.
But are you going to sit here now and suggest that this was clearly advertised to Labour voters, that these cuts were coming? I mean, you often criticise the government's announcements when they even tried to bring up this idea as being sort of anti-people who can't work. It was misleading, the rhetoric in opposition, was it not?
No.
Can I just bring you a tweet then from your boss, the Secretary of State, Liz Kendall, tweeted explicitly to encourage people to sign a petition when the Conservative government in 2016 was considering cutting disability benefits. It doesn't match up, the rhetoric in opposition to this action. And it's an action you have just acknowledged is not because of fiscal constraints. You were going to do it anyway.
Yeah, the changes that we're making are the right changes. The previous government made lots of changes which did a great deal of damage. For example, one of the things that they did was remove an element of universal credit, and it's now pretty widely accepted that forced people onto the higher level of universal credit. So it's actually cost money, and once people are claiming that higher health premium, then they're no longer supported into work. Now, that's a very damaging change. We opposed damaging changes the previous government made. We're bringing forward a package which we think will do the job that's needed, support people back into work and make the system sustainable financially.
If there are Labour voters who feel let down by these changes, that they don't feel, in the 5 years of Starmer's leadership in opposition and in the manifesto specifically, that they could feel this was coming, they're wrong.
We're making changes that need to be made. There's a very large number of people...
But if people that voted for you feel let down by these changes, they're wrong to feel that.
that we're making changes to make the system sustainable so that it will continue to support hundreds of thousands of people who depend on personal independence payment for vital support. I think when people look at the detail of what we're proposing, concentrating help on those who need it most, making sure that help isn't going to be watered down, then they will recognise that we're making the changes that are needed.
I wanted to dive into one issue in particular. So incapacity benefits now only if you're over the age of 22. If it's something that is not right to be given to a 21-year-old, why is it needed for a 25-year-old?
Well, we're very concerned that at the moment, 1 in 8 young people is not in employment, education or training. We know that a long period out of work at the start of somebody's working life, what should be their working life, can have long-term damaging effects on them and on the economy and on all of us. So what we want to do is concentrate help on supporting those young people into education, employment, training early on in their working life so they've got the best possible chance for the future.
I wanted to touch as well on mental health issues, and there's obviously been a lot of rhetoric, specifically as well from Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, that there's too much diagnosis of mental health issues taking place, particularly among young people. How do you as a government address that? Is it going to be legislated to prevent doctors from giving that diagnosis? What sort of things are we considering here?
No, I mean, the focus for the changes that Wes Streeting is making is to improve mental health services. We're going to be investing an extra £26 billion in the NHS in the coming year, recruiting an additional 8,500 people to work in our mental health services. And there's been a big problem about people having access to support they need for mental health in the NHS. We're fixing that problem. We're fixing the National Health Service, and that will help make progress alongside us ensuring that benefit help is available as well.
I also wanted to ask you about payments, welfare payments that aren't made to parents of unwell children when they have to come out of work to watch those children. We had Cherry Menai Davis on last week, who I know, as you know, lost his son a few years ago and has campaigned very loudly on this issue. He met with you a week or so ago and obviously was waiting to watch these announcements yesterday. He suggested when he joined us that he hadn't felt the warmth in the meeting, I think it's fair to say, in terms of listening. What is the message to people like him when we understand there are cuts taking place, so introducing a new benefit altogether is hard? It's kind of very personal to people like him. What is the message?
Well, I'm sorry that Cherry didn't feel the warmth he was hoping for. I was very impressed by the case that he and his wife made to me about the very great hardship they suffered when their child suddenly became very, very unwell and indeed died at the age, I think, of 6. And the loss of Hugh was clearly a devastating experience for them, as the loss of any child is for any parent. And actually, I met another parent, I think the following day, who'd had a rather similar experience, also looking for changes in the benefit system. One thing we are looking at is, and we're taking legal advice about this at the moment, the possibility of extending disability living allowance for children, the benefit that's paid when children are very unwell, for a period after the child's death, just to support parents during what otherwise was obviously a terribly, terribly difficult time, but also a financially difficult time for them. That's a possibility that we are looking at the moment.
Thank you for clarifying that for us. Final question on welfare and benefits. I know one other one as well, but can you rule out now that there won't be further cuts to the welfare budget during this Parliament? We've
set out a very full plan in the Green Paper yesterday. Some of the money involved, all of that will be set out in detail at the spring statement when the Chancellor makes her statement to the Commons next week. We're going to be focusing now on delivering that plan. That's going to keep us busy for some time to come. On Monday, David Lammy said in Parliament that Israel had broken international law.
There was some pullback on that yesterday from various government spokespeople and sources to suggest he wasn't speaking for the government as a whole. Whereas yesterday, in this seat, Pat McFadden said to me, when asked specifically by me, does he speak for the whole government? He said, of course he does. He's the Foreign Secretary. He speaks for the government. So rather than just saying that David Lammy misspoke potentially on Monday, did Pat McFadden misspeak yesterday by suggesting he does speak for them? What's the conclusion here?
I think David Lammy clarified his comments in further remarks yesterday, making the point that Israel is in danger of breaking international law. The aid should be continuing to go into Gaza. Israel should not be cutting off water, cutting off electricity. We need to get help that's urgently needed for people who are having a desperately, desperately hard time at the moment.
Stephen Timms, a really enlightening conversation. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Good to see you.